Hi everyone, I'm Mohammad Naeem Amin Bhatti and I wanna welcome to all of you with another lecture, film narrative and genre. That is a study about emerging forms of literature. Let's talk about the film narrative. We have different definitions in our capacity. First of all, I would like to describe a short piece of quotation by Jean-Louis Goddard, which is a story should have a beginning, a middle, and an end, but not necessarily in that order. It means that the order is not always mandatory, but the proper beginning, middle, and end should be there in a narrative. The development of narrative is actually an art of telling the story. The filmmakers talks about the stories and scripts. Film theorist talks about the narrative. Essentially, they are talking about the same things but using the different words and techniques to do that. To clarify, we need a definition. And what is the definition of the narrative? That is a chain of events in cause effect relationship occurring in time and space. If we talk about the different definition from them, that is, the story is all the events that are presented to us or that we can infer have happened. If we talk about the broader perspective, we can say that the definition of Timothy Corrigan, who said that a short guide to writing about the film identifies the two principal components in a narrative. The very first one is story, that we have defined earlier, and the other one is the plot, which is the arrangement of the happenings and events. So, the study of film narrative then is both the study of its story and also the study how the story has been told. By what means the mice in scene or the cinematography or editing a sound or etc. in the different orders, we can say that. So the narrative task is that if we have assigned in the groups, create the presentation explaining the narrative theory and applying it the Raiders of the Lost Ark or any other movie that we find beneficent or better to apply this. Then we use a term of ellipsis. The ellipsis is basically mostly films operate a high degree of the ellipsis or time manipulation. In order to move the story forward, the audience only sees the movements in time which are relevant to the narrative. Some texts operate time as more balanced real time construction, but classical, post classical, and Hollywood narratives maintains the strict control over the narrative time. But if we talk about the restricted and unrestricted narrative, there are certain boundaries for some of the narratives. Use of the narratives to create the suspense and audience expectations. Restricted or unrestricted narratives determine how much information is released to the audience at the time, what do they need to know, and what should be a special effect to make that narrative restricted or non restricted. So, it is basically an action adventure combo. If we talk about the Diegesis is basically everything that is going on the fictional reality on screen. This is why we mostly commonly use the term is to describe the sound as either diegetic code or as the dialogue and naturalistic background noise, or the non-diegetic or use of the mode music in other scenes. So, what is the narrative actually having the types? The narrative has different types. There is an open narrative, the closed narrative, the linear narrative, non-linear or fractured narrative, the single standard narrative, and multi-standard narrative according to the needs of the movies. And also in different dramatic narratives, we can see that there are often the very linear and non-linear narrative, and sometimes there is a combination of all of these narrative or some of these narratives. So, if we talk about the purpose of narrative, the narrative serves as the number of purposes. It delivers the story in a visual and dialogue shape. It decides what order information is to be developed and delivered. It places the audience on the slide of the protagonist by way of the privileging their perspective above the others. It establishes the piece of the text. It delivers the implicit messages and values or ideologies which support the perspectives of the makers. And next topic will be on film genre, but in today's lecture that's it. And I think if you have any type of question, you can ask me in comment box. Till the next lecture, it's goodbye from me.